So I would rather guide or request that you keep those questions coming as the conversation flows in the comment section, so that we can be responding to them as we have the conversation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. I am Gideon Nova Kwichuriza, and this is the Conversation Junction. Let's right away delve into the conversation. Lewis, you are coming for Member of Parliament, Kampala Central, and just to, for the benefit of our listeners, especially those in Kampala, I wish to give you a few what constitutes Kampala Central. I stand to be corrected, Lewis, when you get the microphone. I think we have in what constitutes Kampala Central, we have Bukesa, we have Civic Center, we have Industrial Area, we have Kagugube, we have Kamocha, we have Kamocha has 1, 2, 3. We have Chisenyi 1, 2, 3. We have Kololo, we have Mengo, we have Nakasero, Nachivubo, and Old Kampala. When people hear Kampala Central, most do not know where it starts or where it ends. My first question to you, Lewis, is what are the key elements of your manifesto for Kampala Central?
Well, thank you very much, Nova, once again. Well, first of all, party candidates generally and very importantly uh, follow the manifesto of their party, the party that is sponsoring you for candidature. You are expected to project, because when we are designing a manifesto for the party, we look at all constituencies, we look at the key issues that affect the people in those constituencies, and then come up with a manifesto. So I need to say that when we talk about the NUP manifesto and the issues therein, they speak definitely to the issues in Kampala Central and as one of the constituencies. So yesterday at the launch of my campaign, I talked about some of the priority areas. But even those priority areas are drawn largely from the manifesto of the party, because as a candidate of the party, you are expected to actually project and implement the manifesto of that party. And if you see the things I was talking about, infrastructure development, you all see the state of the roads we have in parked there for months, sometimes for years, and these are largely for the low-income earners. We've talked about the question of, uh, and this is a very important question that is dear to my heart, the question of low-cost housing for low-income earners. In many countries, when you go to these cities, you realize that governments and cities invest massively in trying to ensure that low-income earners have access to low-cost housing, because this is a basic right for people to have accommodation. You go to the city and see people sometimes, you know, the other day when there was an issue with drainage, we went down into the drainages and found that young people actually sleep there. They stay there. When you interview them, you see that they have very, very serious issues. Some of them have been ejected from their houses. Others are people who were actually staying on that drainage, which Ham took over, and then they decided to now go to the other offshoots of the main drainage and all that. So low cost housing, and I think it's something that is affordable. Many countries, even in Africa, have tried it, and we yesterday were talking about examples of Kenya, and I know it's not the best example to give when it comes to many issues, but at least on that, they've tried to do something around it. I mean, you see Tanzania, you see Rwanda, and other countries trying to implement some of these policies. Uh, so I just wanted to say that our manifesto for the manifesto for constituency has to be tagged to the manifesto for the party. So when we talk about technology, access to internet, all these things actually affect the people of Kampala Central. When we talk about investment in sports, ensuring that I mean, just go move around Kampala, the entire Kampala city, not just Kampala Central, and see how many recreation centers or recreation grounds have been taken over. You know, you have buildings sprouting up in every So it's important that we have members of parliament who can actually follow this issue of oversight very, very significantly. When you talk about representation, it is about making sure that actually you represent the views of the people, that their voice can be heard on the floor of parliament. That when the traders are striking, or when the traders feel that they are being unfairly treated, there's a voice in parliament that is actually raising their issues. That when, if it is street kids that have issues, that you know these guys are not just going to come with trucks and hold them off to I don't know where. I mean, there has to be a human approach to enforcement and all these issues that we're talking about. So, broadly speaking, I want to implement the manifesto of our party, which has 11 key points, but there are those specific issues which touch Kampala Central. So when you talk about education, when you talk about healthcare, when you talk about infrastructure, I mean, you can see how much time we were looking at the figures yesterday, and you know, the people of Uganda lose 52 actually in the greater Kampala area. 52 hours are lost in traffic jam in a year. You can imagine 52 hours, 52 days actually, 52 days that you lose. Can you imagine that? You know, and then you talk, and that's not because of any other thing. It's because of poor roads, poor drainage, lack of prioritization of better transport systems like a train system that can actually transport people better, and all these things are laid down in our manifesto. So yes, I would love to implement the manifesto of NUP, but with a specific focus on Kampala Central as a constituency.
Thank you, Lewis. We've had previous members of parliament representing Kampala Central, and some of them have really tabled these issues on the floor of parliament, the issues you are raising, and these issues have not been addressed by government. How different are you, or how different is your leadership if voted into that seat? How what significant difference should your the people you represent expect?
Yeah, so first of all, again, I need to speak broadly about the struggle we're involved in. The struggle we're involved in is about changing governance in our country. And yesterday I made that point that, you may have all these brilliant ideas about what you want to do, but the most important thing is to advance change. And even when we talk about parliament, we look at it as one of the fronts through which we can push for change. And you've seen even in the current parliament, you have a few members of parliament who are really committed to change, who are trying to push for better policies and all that. The problem is that there are a few voices, and it is important that the people of Uganda add, many other legislators to those voices, people who can speak to their issues, but also speak up when it matters most. Because we are, as you know, going into a very, very critical period. You have a dictator who is aging, who is, trying to find ways of having a monarchy in this country and all that. So why not have members of parliament who can actually speak on behalf of the people when it matters most? People will not be compromised. People are not people of integrity and all that. So in terms of you're asking about what the previous leaders have tried to do and what they have not done, but what I'm saying is that one of the cardinal roles that I hope to be playing is to continue agitating for change. We hope that we can achieve that change in this election. That's what we're talking about, the protest vote. And then our work will be easier. Because if we have a new leadership, a new president, all the policies that we're talking about, having a school feeding program in our manifesto, having better transport systems, upgrading our cities, all these things will be very, very easy to achieve because one leader, and I believe you'll see what I'll be doing, and I've been doing it already, trying to be on the ground, helping people. I mean, we've been doing this across the country, and we continue to do it with the political prisoners, their families, and all that and all that. But one, in our manifesto, if you see, we have clearly indicated that we are going to cut down on expenses on public expenditure. You know, we've clearly said that we want to bring a lean but efficient government. So our promise is to cut down on expenses, cut down on expenditure, reduce the salaries of, for example, the political elite, and increase salaries of, medical workers, teachers, and all these people. All these are laid down in our manifesto. But the point I'm making is, in the current context, yes, you find that leaders have to step in. Of course, some have not stepped in, others try to step in. Yesterday, what I promised the people of Kampala Central was that, yes, I have the connections that I can use to actually attract some people who can improve the lives of our people. You know, yesterday, one of the things we're talking about is, for example, having a night economy. But do you know why the night economy is not thriving in Kampala? Part of the problem is lighting. You know, you go to the ghettos and they are dark, even as we speak right now. But if we're able to attract some people, if you still have an absent government, you can try to bring these services to the people through having different connections and all that. However, like I said, our preoccupation now as the people of Uganda, and that's a delicate balance. I'm speaking both as a candidate and as a Secretary General of this party. Our preoccupation is removing Museveni, because once we do that, then it will be very easy for us to put our money where the people are. Right now, the Museveni regime is putting money where it is, the regime, investing in the regime itself, in regime survival. You know, that's why everywhere they are going now, you see them spending money, putting ghetto people somewhere to ensure they don't come to listen to what our president is saying. You've seen how many billions they've been investing in these so-called ghetto structures, not for empowerment, but simply for patronage. And we hope to put that to an end and invest our money where the people are. Yesterday, I was indicating that, for example, in Kampala itself, the government raises about 75% of the total of the total GDP, of the total taxes that they collect from the people. So if you are getting all this money from Kampala, the question is, where are you investing it? You'd expect the roads to be better, to have a better road network. I mean, how can we be talking about the Chitezi saga, where people are killed and buried under garbage in 2025, simply because, people have just chosen to ignore expert advice. They have refused to invest money in trying to, because in other countries you find that garbage is actually used for energy and other purposes, for manure, for other purposes, because it can be used for that. But in Uganda, because the investment of the regime is staying in power, they don't think outside the box. They don't invest they don't even invest in research. They are simply trying to stay in power. And that is what we hope to change, both for the country and, now to be specific to the constituency, definitely for the constituency.
Thank you, Lewis. For these other questions, I would prefer you answer as a member, aspiring member of parliament for Kampala Central. Then we shall come to the second segment when you are Secretary General for NUP, because there is also an assumption that we must take in, that there is a possibility that NUP may not take power, but you win an election as member of parliament for Kampala Central, and you must deliver. So that's also a possibility we have to look at. We have an issue in Kampala, an issue of one of vendors. People are on the streets, and every now and then they are trying to look for bread for their children, for whatever, and KCCA is harassing them. They have to run here and there. They don't have where to go. They can't afford to rent shops. I mean, as a member of parliament for Kampala Central, how would you address such an issue?
Well, like I said, we want to have a city that works both for the poor and for the rich. You want to have a city that works for the different clusters of society. And I think that's a message which our president was putting in his song when he says that, you know, abakulembeze balina okukola nga bali wamu n'abantu. You need to work with the people. You must make sure that enkulaakulana bwebejja, you don't say that now development has come, let's push the people, the poor people out of the way and bring development. Well, then that's not development. One of the things we've been talking about, for example, you go to different countries, even if it is London, you find that there are streets which are reserved for hawkers, for people who sell their things on the streets. You find that there are, you know, lanes are put in place for these kinds of people. But you also find that there are some days, you know, there are, for example, the Sunday market, where you find that even in the biggest of cities, you find that you know, the low income earners are able to bring out their stuff in a regulated manner, but then they're also able to earn. So the city cannot just be for the well-to-do, for the wealthy. It cannot be just like I said. You want to make sure that the arcade owners are happy. They are also earning because again, and you know that's why I was saying that if I find it difficult to just limit my arguments to Kampala Central because these are national issues. When you're talking about the taxation regime, which affects the arcade owner and forces the arcade owner to increase rent to impossible levels, then you find that then now the person who is renting in there does not want this hawker to be on the streets because there is that competition. The person who is in the arcade would want to be allowed to have the monopoly instead of allowing the person on the street to also be able to earn a living in that manner. So you have a city that does not work for different clusters of society, which is why I'm saying that the policies that we make must be able to balance the interests of the, you know, the well-to-do and the low-income earners, who are the majority actually. So, for example, these hawkers, you can ensure that there are specific days when they can bring their stuff out. You can ensure that there are specific lanes in the city which are reserved for them. And if we have orderliness and all that, you can achieve all these things.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There is another issue that I don't want to leave behind: the issue of rent fees. I have personally been downtown. I have had a conversation with with some of these people who are renting in those arcades, in those malls, but they are burdened. Some are actually parking, leaving business, and going back to the village, totally frustrated. The reason I emphasize the fact that I want your personal efforts and your promises as a member of parliament for Kampala Central is because I don't want us to paint a picture that if Museveni and his government do not go in 2026, then a member of parliament, Kampala Central, is going to use it as an excuse for failure to deliver anything fundamental. I hope I bring that picture out clearly. So these people are crying. There is no regulation on rent. There is no, and you know, this parliament is where these bills and the laws are passed. But landlords increase rent fees when they feel, when he wakes up on a bad night, he increases, and you have to sort yourself. So how are you going to work on that issue?
Well, like I said, these are policies that, you know, all of us can see. For example, as you know, there is a law that was passed actually at the time when it was coming up initially. I participated in debating it because at the time I was working with the Equal Opportunities Commission, the Landlord and Tenant Act. We were trying to look at how it affects, you know, the poor people, and indeed even the owners of these buildings and all that, and trying to figure out how to strike that balance. You've talked about the question of regulation, and that's why I said that legislation is extremely important. The role of member of parliament, the legislation role of member of parliament is key, is critical in ensuring that there's fairness across the board. I don't want you to create an impression that you must just favor one section of society and leave out the others. The most important thing is to first of all understand why are tenants, why are landlords increasing rent in this manner? Because when you listen to them, sometimes they also have their own issues they are raising. Now, then the question becomes, what about these people who are, being forced to pay very, very high taxes on the goods they bring in, and then they are burdened by high rent fees? So I think the question should be how to, first of all, listen to the people, understand where this issue is coming from. You've always had the landlords also complaining about property taxes and all that. So for me, I think the role of member of parliament is to listen, understand these issues, and then be able to legislate for the people in the interest of the people. Because, Nova, it would be unfair for me to just come and say, oh, I'm going to push for legislation to say that immediately, uh, you know, rent is put, for example, there is a cap on rent and that kind of thing, without first understanding the source of the problem. If, for example, you deal with the taxation challenge across the board, and then once those taxes, the property rates and all that come down, then you can effectively legislate and say that we have put a cap on how much these are being charged. That actually, after someone getting into a building, after this period of time, you cannot be increasing rent. Because one of the challenges you've seen the traders complaining about is the question of predictability. Someone enters a building today, in 2 months' time, rent increases. In 2 months, 2 other months to come, rent increases. Omugaga nagamba kakati njagala bagoba mwena mwena ndeeta abapangisa abapya. You've been seeing that kind of challenge in Kampala. So we need to listen to all these people, understand where the problem is coming from. If it is a question of high property rates, where is it coming from? Why don't we legislate to bring that down in order? And also one of the things we've been talking about is broadening the tax base, because the Museveni regime believes, I think, in just uh, taxing, uh, getting easy taxes from easy targets, than trying to make sure, first of all, that taxes are working for the people, and therefore people are incentivized to bring in more taxes, and thereby widening the tax base and reducing the burden on the few people who are paying taxes currently. And again, like I said, all these are detailed in our manifesto and my own agenda, as I was explaining yesterday.
Thank you so much. One of the roles of a member of parliament is to lobby for their people. And opposition leaders have for a long time been accused of being radical, that even the little they would lobby for from government it does not reach their people, because they say we cannot talk to these people, we cannot. What, as a member of parliament, what collaboration are you going to have with a government, just in case, assuming we still have the same regime and you are a member of parliament? What kind of collaboration or connection are you going to have with the government to be able to lobby for your people?
Well, when I talk about lobbying, I'm not just talking about lobbying from government. First of all, we hope and pray that next year we shall be in government as a national unity platform, and we're able to change things for better. Whether we are in government or not, like you seem to be asking your question, it is important for leaders to lobby, to look for friends out there, to get people who can, you know, invest in different things for the benefit of the people. And actually, I've seen even opposition leaders, when a government program comes and it is not tied to patronage and all that, I don't think there's a problem with that. And our members of parliament, we've never discouraged them from, receiving, whether it is, you've seen many times when they came up, even with some of the programs we largely oppose in terms of their approach. But when they come officially and they are, for example, distributing seedlings, or they are distributing different things, we never have a problem with that. But Where we have a problem is where things are clearly used for patronage. For example, the PDM disaster, where they got the NRM person, put them on that committee, and said that now this is a government program which is supposed to benefit everybody. But if you look at it, when NUP supporters in different places, the non-supporters went to benefit from these services, they were simply blocked from accessing them. And we had many examples which we pointed out to the people. People were being blocked from PDM, or those who are being told if you want to benefit from PDM, you must support the regime. So definitely I would not be part of such schemes or such maneuvers where programs are brought in the context of patronage and supporting NRM and all that. But if it is a government program that is brought through the proper channels, that one we've never had a problem with our people engaging in it. But like I said, our prayer, our hope and work is to ensure that we're in government, because this present regime makes it very, very difficult for leaders to achieve optimally. But like I said, even under the present context, you've seen the work I've been doing at an individual level, getting out of the way to support as many people as I can. We've, as NUP, engaged in different charity programs, going to Karamoja to help our people. The last time when our people were stuck in Arab countries and needed support to come back, we mobilized resources. I went with several officials to Dubai and all these places, helped our people return, and many other things that we can do. But in terms of lobbying, there are many friends actually who can support the healthcare system, who can support our schools. One of the approaches, for example, I would not have loved to really talk about this here on this space, because it is a program that is, I know when I talk about it, somebody will just jump on it. But nonetheless, let me talk about it. The whole idea of, you know, for example, getting 1 month or 2 months and devote them to one particular sector that affects the people in the constituency. And you say that for these 2 months, let's focus on healthcare. And you rally the people in the constituency to do everything possible about healthcare. Now, in our manifesto, for example, if we take power, one of the things we want to bring about is health insurance, which we hope we can achieve, which is achievable. I mean, you've seen it. It is working in Rwanda. It is working in different countries. It's something we hope to achieve. But even before then, there are simple things that we can work together with our communities to ensure that there are first aid services, to ensure that the health centers have the basic necessities, things to begin with. You now go to a health facility, find that there are no beds for patients, people, casualties, and people who have gotten accidents have to be put on the floor. People, health workers in there don't have gloves, they don't have what. So these are things we can deal with. But one of the approaches I think that can help is to say, let's prioritize. Let's charge the community. For this month, let's focus on healthcare. For the second month, let's focus on education. Let's focus on cleaning the drainages. Let's focus on uh, dealing with different things. Maybe providing garbage collection points at different points within the constituency. Maybe being able to lobby and we get garbage collection trucks in different areas. So all these are programs that I'm thinking about. And if the people of Kampala trust me with their vote, you'll see us begin to implement them one by one.
Thank you, Lewis. Justice Hunter says a collective solution is needed to address the rent question for all stakeholders in Kampala. Lewis has tackled it well. Hassan Tare says the challenge is that in the policy and law amendment process, the policymakers are the landlords whom you want to catch themselves. Just if you, Lewis, if you have somewhere you note, in case there is a question in what these people are saying, I'm just reading comments so that you can address it. Sg.David says the issue of vendors to add on may be given specific days and allocated time for them to bring their things as well. Okay. Um, okay. Before we cross to the second segment, do you? I want us to seal this issue of your candidature for Kampala Central and I want you to give a closing remark on it and talk to the people of Kampala Central.
Well, thank you so much. Like I said, for me, I look at leadership as a service. I look at leadership as sacrifice. I look at leadership as a mission to serve the people, to uplift them, to better their conditions. I believe in servant leadership. I believe that a leader must listen to the people as of necessity, must understand their needs and views. I've been lucky to stay in 3 parishes of Kampala Central at different points. At one point, I was staying in Bukesa. At another point, I was staying in Kamocha. At another point, in Kagugube. I understand generally the challenges within Kampala, and you know, I've moved around. Some people, again, like I said yesterday, they rarely see us right now, where by the grace of God we are, and they, you know, seem not to know where we've been. So I've been through many challenging situations as a person. So I understand what it means for our people, especially the low-income earners, to go through what they are going through. And it's very painful. I was very touched by those young people who stay in who have to live under drainages and all that. So I want to have this as an opportunity, not to be called honorable, not to, you know, have another title to myself, but to serve the people, to be able to change their lives, be able to, you know, show leadership in its full force and what it means. Um, you've seen the other time, several times in Kampala, buildings have been caught by fire, and you know, the fire rescue service, the rescue services, the fire response services arrive 3 hours later when there's nothing to save. You know, and yet when they hear that our President Chagulanyi is in Kampala, they will not take 20 minutes to arrive and deal with that. Many times you go there and they say there's no water. They must first go to another point to get water for them to come. You know, then is in the current context, yes, you find that leaders have to step in. Of course, some have not stepped in, others try to. Our preoccupation to an end and invest our money where the people are. Yesterday, I was indicating that, for example, in Kampala itself, the government raises about 75% of the total of the total GDP, of the total taxes that they collect from the people. So, if you are getting all this money from Kampala, the question is, where are you investing it? You'd expect the roads to be better, to have a better road network. I mean, how can we be talking about the Chitezi saga where people are killed and buried under garbage in 2025 simply because, you know, people have just chosen to ignore expert advice. They have refused to invest money in trying to, because in other countries you find that garbage is actually used for energy and other purposes, for manure, for, you know, other purposes, because it can be used for that. But in Uganda, because the investment of the regime is staying in power, they don't think outside the box. They don't invest they don't even invest in research. They are simply trying to stay in power. And that is what we hope to change, both for the country and, now to be specific to the constituency, definitely for the constituency.
Thank you, Lewis. For these other questions, I would prefer you answer as as a member, aspiring member of parliament for Kampala Central, then we shall come to the second segment when you are Secretary General for NUP, because there is also an assumption that we must take in, that there is a possibility that NUP may not take power, but you win an election as member.
Rent in this manner, because when you listen to them, sometimes they also have when there's nothing to save, you know. And yet when they hear that President Chagulanyi is in Kampala, they will not take 20 minutes to arrive and deal with that. Many times you go there and they say there's no water. They must first go to another point to get water for them to come. You know, then at some point they tell you that the water, the hydrants are not working. So all these challenges are questions of governance, and the member of parliament may not be there to respond to these things directly, because these things should be under KCCA as an authority. But at least a member of parliament must raise the voice of these people, must lobby, must make sure that the laws are able to work for the people, must decongest the city, and many other things that I've talked about. So yes, I appeal to the people, if there are any voters of Kampala Central listening in, to trust me with their vote, and I promise that I will not disappoint them.
Thank you so much. Ronald Kwizera says, good deliberation from my SG, but on issues of hawkers and rent increases, I think we need a law in Uganda that can protect both the hawkers and the tenants.
And Nova, I think that's a point I made actually, and someone raised it. I said that, you know, when you're legislating, you must look at both sides, and it has to be consultative. And yes, if there are lobbyists, like you said, people who are owning these buildings, who are part of the legislation process, that's why we need servant leaders, people who are going to look at the facts as they are, to try and understand, first of all, if somebody came into your building and you were charging them 1 million shillings, why are you charging them 2 million shillings 2 months later, when there hasn't been an increase in the property rates, when there hasn't been any significant shock that would ordinarily push you to increase rent? So that's why I said it has to be consultative, it has to be factual. They just gather all these young people from the town centers, bring artists, organize food for them, simply because they don't want them to go out and listen, thereby denying them
candidate. We didn't see tear gas, we didn't see beatings, we didn't see gunshots, we didn't see arrests for close, I think, to a month, if I'm not mistaken. And then the day you step foot in Western Uganda, specifically starting from Chiruhura, then Barara, you are rounded up by security and people are picked up. And some, I think, people thought that maybe there had been an understanding between the opposition political parties and the other stakeholders in the election, like the Electoral Commission and security. And some people came out terming this electoral, the campaign saying they don't have vibe. I'm picking from especially social media, because I think of what we are used to seeing in the past elections. What had happened earlier that all of a sudden turned around now for security to start harassing your people and arresting? What do you think, in your own thinking, caused the turn of events?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think the regime did it out of its own will. I want you to recall that after the 2021 election, there was a lot of pressure on the regime from the international community. Many countries of the world condemned the kind of violence that was in that election. The US itself said they could not legitimize such an election, and many other countries. And of course, what followed were sanctions on many regime officials, and even sanctions on the country itself. And so I think that the regime really was trying to do that again, simply because they were playing to the gallery. Maybe their approach was, let's let them campaign. After all, we know that at the end of the day, we are going to do what we have to do. But one of the things and you've been seeing it reflected in the narratives of many regime sycophants and on radio stations and all that, saying, oh, NUP was a wave. So somehow they foolishly thought, and forgive me for using that word because it's the accurate word, they thought that NUP had lost steam, had lost support. That were still coming out to receive this message of change. They couldn't bear it anymore. And so they resorted to the usual tactics. I want you to remember that NRM is essentially a violent, militaristic outfit. And for them, every challenge they get, they respond to it militarily. That is what they know. They don't want to engage in the kind of debate we're engaging in now. For them, when they are challenged, they resort to violence. So I think what you saw in Barara was a culmination of that kind of embarrassment. While they know that they have lost support, and then they see the kind of support that we're attracting everywhere we go, they thought they need to resort to violence, and definitely they want to cut our speed. Right now, we have over 150 people in detention. People have been arrested during these campaigns. Over 10 were arrested in Lira. Only 10 were charged. Others let go after a few days. We had people who were, there was a raid on the hotel in Barara. Over 23 people were picked up. And then in Barara itself, we had over 120 people picked up. Now, these ones are added to the Waiswa group, Eddie Mutwe and others who they've been picking up, charging with unlawful drilling and these other crazy offenses. We have a group in Masaka prisons. We still have people who are detained from the last election at Chitaria. So, and the other, of course, the other reason is because the regime wants to keep us busy. They want, for example, as the Secretary General of the party, I should be preoccupied with how we are going to protect the vote, how we are going to get funds to carry out the campaigns, how we are going to move around the whole country, how we are going to do all these things. But right now, because of this situation which we are in, you find that you're now preoccupied with how to ensure there's welfare for the prisoners, how to support their families, how to ensure their lawyers. So that's part of their approach, to try and distract us, try to disorganize, and of course try to incapacitate us and uh, to cripple us in many ways. Because if you see now the president's security team, the head of our security team at NUP is Achileo Chivumbi. He's in detention. The head of our president's security is in detention. That's Eddie Mutwe. Our deputy spokesperson is in prison. So all that is a scheme, and you just look at the comrades they've just picked up. You know, So all that is a scheme to really try to cripple and incapacitate the National Unity Platform and largely the opposition against the regime.
Thank you. That's the Secretary General of the National Unity Platform on the conversation junction. I would love to draw us back a little back. After the referendum that brought back the multi-party system, the multi-party dispensation in 2005, we had an election in 2006, and the main opposition figure was Dr. Kizza Besigye, who is in prison right now. And immediately after the election, he comes out to say that the election was unfair, it had irregularities, it had been rigged. He went to court, and the Supreme Court dismissed the case, saying that the alleged irregularities could not overturn the results of the election. In 2011, he was still the face of the opposition. Same things happened. This time he refused to go back to court, saying there was no justice served in court. In 2016, the same thing happened. But in 2016, the same thing happened. This time he attempted to swear himself in as said, and he was arrested and tried with treason and all these things. In 2021, we got a new face of opposition, which is the National Unity Platform. But what had happened with FDC and Dr. Kizza Besigye is exactly the same thing that happened in 2021. You people came out saying the vote was not the elections were not fair, free and fair. People were killed, people were abducted. The same accusations that had been the same claims that had been given by Dr. Kizza Besigye and FDC. Now we are in 2026, and we are getting back to the same election, same presiding officers, same chairperson electoral commission, same setup of the security operatives, same almost everything. What hope should Ugandans have? What on what basis should Ugandans have hope that this time an opposition political party is going to win the election, and the chairperson of the electoral commission is going to announce an opposition leader as the president of Uganda, and we are going to see a transition of government?
Well, first of all, I want to say that, for example, I personally believe that the 4 attempts Dr. Kizza Besigye made at the presidency through elections, and what we're trying to do is keeping that hope alive, because, you know, if you do not participate, I mean, that's what the regime would love. I believe, with the kind of system that we have, they don't care. In fact, for them, having you guys boycott as the opposition would be the best thing, because some people have called this, and I think it's Dr. Businja Kabumba who referred to it as coronation at regular intervals. So the regime looks at all this as a coronation of sorts, just to get legitimacy, to try to project to the outside world that as a coronation of sorts, just to get legitimacy, to try to project to the outside world that there are elections in Uganda and all that. So they are forced to organize elections, but innately they wouldn't want to. They wouldn't want to have these elections, which are a very, very big inconvenience to them. So if you decide to say, let me keep away, you're giving them exactly what they want. But I believe that we believe that by participating in these elections, first of all, we have an opportunity to reach out to the masses, preach them a message. I mean, despite the challenges we are having now on the campaign trail, at least we are able to reach everywhere in the country, which opportunity we have not had. Since the last election, you saw every time we'd start our nationwide tour, the police would come up after 2 days, 3 days, block us. Not to say that they may not block us now, but the chances of them blocking you outside an election period are always much, much higher than in an election period, because then you're able to ask them, but Museveni is somewhere campaigning, why are you blocking us? Of course, I know they always find ways to cut our speed, to do the kinds of things I've told. So if you decide to say, let me keep away, you're giving them exactly what they want. But I believe that we believe that by participating in these elections, first of all, we have an opportunity to reach out to the masses, preach them a message. I mean, despite the challenges we are having now on the campaign trail, at least we are able to reach everywhere in the country, which opportunity we have not had. Since the last election, you saw every time we'd start our nationwide tour, the police would come up after 2 days, 3 days, block us. Not to say that they may not block us now, but the chances of them blocking you outside an election period are always much, much higher than in an election period, because then you're able to ask them, but Museveni is somewhere campaigning, why are you blocking us? Of course, I know they always find ways to cut our speed, to do the kinds of things I've told you they are doing, but they find themselves unable to do them at the scale in which they do them at other times. So there are many reasons why it is important to participate in these kinds of elections, but most importantly, the hope. I believe when Dr. Kizza Besigye was swearing himself in at that time, he was being motivated by the hope that perhaps the people of Uganda will rise up to the occasion and say enough. And there have been several attempts. During walk to work, people came out in large numbers. The other day when our president were arrested in Luka, you saw a yearning for change. You saw people coming out to protest against the impunity, against the injustice.